fucking hate Peanut. he is like my least favorite recurring character not named Gigi.
Okay, I can see that. I don't always enjoy Peanut, but I really, really, really love certain Peanut moments. For example, here, take my Lexus! Followed by the, who rollin' with the nut? With the, like, vague beeping in the background. Like, just the timing of that and, like, the creepy awfulness of it is so perfect. It's like the one where he's talking to Birdman, and Birdman's like, why do I feel like we're constantly having different conversations? Let me tell you one thing, Padroni. When Peanut comes heavy, he comes hard. Great, that's much better. He's awful.
I do love the Peanut-centric episode with the whole Peanut puberty thing.
Yeah.
With him going through superhero puberty. It's excellent. Anyways, hi, we're a minute in. This is TBD Podcast, as you full well know. Today we're going to be doing Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
You know, and we're going to do the whole thing in Kyle from Aquadine Unger voice. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it seemed fucking appropriate. They both premiered in December of 2000.
Great. I'm glad at least one of us has our facts straight.
Oh, I did some research up on here. You know, I like to know exactly what I'm watching when I have sex with it. Wait. Regardless, I think that to give those an introduction to Harvey Birdman who are not familiar, when the Adult Swim lineup, of which obviously both Etienne and myself are aficionados of the
aficionados.
Yes, of the programming block. The entire programming block was originally based around spin-offs of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And Space Ghost Coast to Coast got made in 1994. It ran for 10 seasons, so to 2004. And in 2000, a bunch of the guys who had worked on Space Ghost got together and went to Cartoon Network and were basically like, look, we think that there's a lot of potential for other like self-produced shows where we can produce out of our backstock of Hanna-Barbera and like classic Turner stuff. That are all spin-offs of Space Ghost, and we think it'll be profitable for the channel. So they put out opening episode runs of Harvey Birdman, C-Lab 2021, The Brack Show, and Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And from that, they got enough attention that they actually got the Adult Swim block going in September of 2001, so about 9 months after the block originally debuted. So because of this, we have this like weird group of shows that completely, I think, changed the way that comedy was done at that particular time, particularly animated comedy. And I think none of them exemplify a clean vision of this particular comedy style as well as Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, which is what we're going to be discussing today, which uses stock footage from old Hanna-Barbera cartoons to make the hero Birdman an attorney who usually loses his cases in an incredibly surreal world that is all based on rapid-fire, 3-count comedic timing. Is that a good summation?
Yeah, there's some things that I can't necessarily speak to or agree with, specifically because they're based on time period stuff. To say that really they were pushing the envelope in a certain way, I don't have a point or a counterpoint to speak to with that directly. I do love a lot of what they did with taking something old and making it very new and very different.
Yes.
If you go back and like look at all the offshoots of the various Hanna-Barbera properties that they took and they incorporated, they are nothing like the way that they are in Harvey Birdman. Like, I love the character Peter Potamus. I've tried to watch the old school Peter Potamus cartoons. There's no semblance. The only thing is the namesake and the fact that he's a fucking hippo because...
Yeah, that's it. But they took that image and they remixed it in this weird new way, which I thought was part of the strength of the show, was figuring out how to use these characters and these pieces, essentially, recut from an earlier thing, as archetypal images within the language of the show, and therefore creating an entire language, like Dharmakian language, within the show, entirely out of those characters, with them representing those different concepts. And through that, they were able to I think, the reason that I say, like, so much about it changing comedy specifically at that time, is that that's when, like, you had, like, the first season of Family Guy in 99. Coming into the early 2000s, you were having these comedy shows, like, particularly animated comedy, that were playing off of the Simpsons thing of, like, trying to use, like, reference to movies and film and things like that. And the Adult Swim shows narrowed the focus of creating that, like, fast-paced, like, crazy offshoots, like, crazy wacky things that are, like, basically random weird cutaways, and then it pulls back to the main thing. Like, if you watch the first season of Family Guy, even the first 2 seasons of Family Guy, the cutaway thing was not as heavily a part of the show. That was something that I think far more came out of this explosion of style that was from the Adult Swim network. And especially if you look at over the seasons of all of those shows, but particularly Harvey Birdman, it then goes so far into that ridiculous, like, truly, like, how far can we push this joke? How crazy and wild and explosive can we make all of these moments? Things that you started having happen in internet humor. Because so much of that internet humor community was watching Adult Swim every night. Because it was the more adult-oriented cartoons, and it was that generation of kids growing up hitting 14, 15, 16, and being online and exchanging all of those ideas. So that's when you have memes really start exploding and taking off. And that show, like C-Lab 2021, runs off of internal memes. And so I think that we can trace part of that whole meme style of humor directly to that opening run of 4 shows.
And again, that's something that I don't have specific enough to... I get your reasoning and I get your logic, and I'm not disagreeing with that necessarily. I'm just saying that I don't have the data points to agree nor disagree.
You sure?
Yes.
You won't like me when I'm angry.
You won't like me when I'm hungry. You won't like me when I'm horny.
Like, that was my personal favorite.
Parched.
Oh, God, I forgot the parched one. That is a great one. Hey, hey, hey. It's bagel day. Make way. And it's just, for me, this is just...
those poppies eat inferior quality, but yes.
Yes. As much, like, it had been so many years since I rewatched this show, and it was really, like... It was just such a pleasure to sit down and grind through it. Even doing, as a mea culpa to the audience, I've been horribly off my game in terms of schedule recently. So I actually thought we were recording this a week earlier than we were planning to. So I was, like, coming down to meet Etienne and had just finished 12 hours, 18 hours, roughly. And so that's 4 seasons. And they're 11 reasonably dense. It's about 7 hours of material, 8 hours of material. So I ended up rewatching it again after that. And even on the second rewatch, it was so much fun to, like, go back through and have all of these rich moments that were, like, for a really long time, Harvey Birdman was my favorite comedy show, like, by a wide fucking margin. If I was going to go to anything on AdultSwim.com, because I watched literally everything on AdultSwim.com, the one that got rewatched the most was Harvey Birdman. Because it never failed to impress me. And it wasn't just because I was really fucking high.
For sure. I know that it was your favorite, at least for a long-ass time, and I actually hadn't seen the show until about 2 or 3 years ago.
Really?
And, like, you were talking about it so much that I just decided one day to fuck it, you know, I can find it online. It's still on Adult Swim. And the first couple episodes I watched were, like, end of Season 3, beginning of Season 4.
Nice, where things are really starting to go nuts.
And you had, like, a combination of, like, either smaller time characters or flat out, like, guest characters, guest voices, and they happen to be people that, you know, I recognized or I loved for X or Y role. Like, one of the first episodes I saw was Identity Theft, which has Lewis Black as Elliot, or Elliot.
Yeah.
The Deadly Duplicator.
Elliot, 2 L's, 2 T's. Everyone knows my name is Elliot. Like...
And, like, from that moment, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, why haven't I seen the show?
Yeah.
And, like, I was hoping that he was going to be more of a mainstay, and he wasn't, but there was enough other things that, like, I grew to love about it that it didn't matter.
And I think he's a mainstay for the end of the show. It's just he comes in very late. Sorry, just that was a side note.
And the other one was David Koechner, I think that's how you say his name. He's the balding guy who's been in a couple movies with Will Ferrell. He was in Talladega Nights. He was in Anchorman. He did The Goods, Live Hard, Sell Hard.
I don't know the man. Here, let me look up, while you're speaking, I'm going to look up his face.
McQuilkin.
Oh my god, no shit. And he's one of the four, he's the guy who's not Paul Rudd and not Steve Carell and not Will Ferrell in Anchorman.
Yeah.
Of the four.
Yeah.
No shit. I didn't realize he was McQuilkin. That's
was,
fucking cool.
Part of my original draw to the show. And obviously, like, Stephen Colbert is, like, a staple of the show. And, like, it may be hard to believe if you haven't seen the show, but it's probably my favorite thing that Stephen Colbert has ever done or been a part of.
Agreed.
Like, just fantastic voice acting, fantastic character play. Like, I love Myron Reducto. He's one of my favorites.
Oh my god, yes.
Like, yes,
the
Phil
precision
Kinsebin
of that
is probably the more predominant role for him, and he does an excellent job as Phil Kinsebin. But, like, Reducto,
oh yeah.
that booty.
That booty just too fine. When I see the moon in your eyes, my love. From your creamy looked thighs. Fun fact, the scene in the final season where Phil walks in and it's the Incredible Hippo setup, where like everything in his office is broken, he is whistling that song. I noticed that on this watch through and I'd never noticed it before. Like,
and that whole booty episode, like there's the whole like interplay back and forth between his two characters, because it starts off with the whole Phil Kinsebin thing, and then it just cuts into the Reducto storyline, and then it cuts back into the Seven thing, and it's like, okay, cool.
They just were like, we know you're leaving. Well, no, that was actually the season before he left. But yeah, they were like, we're just going to do an episode that's just letting Stephen Colbert be Stephen Colbert. Like, and that was beautiful to see. And I think that they handled his leaving really well in that wonderful, like, fourth wall kind of wink way that the whole show does, because the show is constantly looking directly at the audience going, and here's the joke.
I mean, again, like, you've loved the show longer, you have more specific facts that pertain to the show. But it felt to me like the show ended because he left. Like, they knew as they were making that final season that he was leaving, and without him, they weren't going to continue the show. That's what it felt like to me. So that it ended... Him leaving the show ended the show. Yeah. And I don't feel like it was a bad time to end the show.
No.
But it makes me kind of sad that him leaving effectively killed it.
Yeah, I think that's actually very possible. I don't have specific data on that, actually. That's an area where my particular love of this show has fallen flat. I don't know what
sad.
Foreshadowing. Dangly parts. Billy. That is one of my favorite long-term jokes, is just the Billy on anything that can be phallic in the last few seasons. Just the cutbacks to fucking Mytor. Like... But, you know, I feel like that's a very, very good theory. And it makes a lot of sense because that last season, I think, is fantastic. But it's trying to tie it together in a way that none of the other seasons do. I think that season 4, as a complete work, has a through line that I think that the other seasons were specifically designed to avoid. The first time that I watched it for this, specifically for the podcast, I watched the entire show through beginning to end in order. And I was intrigued by the fact that they seed every character who's going to be something in a couple of episodes, like 2 episodes early. They'll be in the background, they'll be doing something, there'll be a mention of them, they'll be on a desk somewhere. They have all of these weird little things where they, like, put in references to the people before they're major. 2 episodes before Potamus actually plays any kind of a role, there's like a couple of moments where he's like in the background saying something. McQuilkin, 2 episodes before he actually pops up as like the new co-partner of the company, he's not only in the employee orientation one, he's in another one in the background. I can't remember exactly what it was, because Yeah. But the second time I watched through it, I did it on shuffle. Because the way I originally saw it was essentially on shuffle. It was watching it on TV or watching it on AdultSwim.com. Depending on what episodes they decided to put up, it could be a random grab bag. And watching it that way, I kept noticing every single episode in that there was some element that tied from the previous episode that I had watched into the next one. Whether it be the flaming chunk of wood falling from orbit because of the reference of another planet blowing up, or whether it be Frida Kahlo and the Mole visual gag through line that just goes on for fucking 3 seasons. And I realized that I think the show was meant to be watched out of order. It's meant, for the most part, to be this jumble of different things that all connect to each other. Because watching it, like, cleanly in order, I was shocked at a few points being like, wow, this is like season 1 when this happened. I thought this was way later. Or being like, holy shit, I thought this was season 1 and it's in season 3. Like the Deadly Duplicator episode originally, like, I thought was way the fuck earlier in the show. And so I feel like they were trying to create this work that had so many interwebbed connections that it's kind of designed to be seen out of order in that way. Except for the 4th season. And I think that explains that anomaly of the 4th season, that they were like, crap, we're losing Stephen Colbert. We need to figure out the way to tie this off correctly. And I think it functioned very well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they had like the patchwork of the universe. So you have characters that are appearing and then disappearing and then appearing and then disappearing because they're not needed then. But they are still interconnected in both the Hanna-Barbera universe and in the makeshift Harvey Birdman attorney at law universe.
Yeah.
So I get that. It's tough for me to say what's seeding, what's the connections that were actually made intentionally, what are the connections that your brain is making.
Yeah.
Because again, I do think that everything
bias.
Right. I do think that everything is interconnected in this in some way. And I don't know that it's seeding or whatever, but I do agree that there is a connection.
Yeah. Well, and that's, again, like, I don't know. Again, I don't know exactly what was in the creators' heads. And it honestly kind of makes me sad. I was reading up on both Eric Richter and Michael Ueline, who were the two writers and showrunners for, like, the whole thing. And neither of them have done a hell of a lot after Harvey Birdman. Eric Richter went on to do producing on Ugly Americans and a little bit on American Dad.
Okay.
And wrote, like, 3 episodes of Ugly Americans. So
Excellent.
It's interesting looking where he went with his end of the comedy. And then literally the only thing Michael Ueline did after Harvey Birdman was Stroker and Hoop.
I know nothing about.
It was a later Adult Swim show, and it's not one of the ones that I care for. I thought that Stroker and Hoop was of the same level of crap, and I don't actually mean to make this a pun, but the same level of crap as Assy McGee, which is another one of those works that I'm like, these are people whose work I really like, and I just don't care for this particular dish that they have cooked. This dish is terrible. And so, like, looking at that, I was really interested to see, like, okay, these two men haven't, like, they created, I think, the tightest comedic timing of any show ever. And I am willing to defend that. I would love to sit down and do a side-by-side comparison of that and any other show in terms of tight comedic timing and precise use of comedic beats. And I don't think there's been a single one that rivals it. And then having these two men then kind of be like, and like not doing a ton of other stuff was really interesting for me. Because I was like, wonder what it was. Like, was this their magnum opus? Was this all that they were meant to do?
Clearly they've gone on to do other things. And
the flight of a half man, half bird. Together we explode.
So, I mean, like, if they would have just decided to stop, I would have seen that more as being the case. I understand that, like, yes, at the end of the day, everybody needs a certain amount of money. So going on and making other things. I also think it's interesting the connection to Ugly Americans, because that's another, like, animated show that I truly love.
Yeah,
I love that show. And there are some, like, random connections, like the fucking mustard rants in, like, Ugly Americans, and, like...
I don't remember those. I haven't actually seen all of Ugly Americans. Okay. Like, what I've seen, I absolutely adored, but I haven't watched the whole show.
There are definitely, like, lulls. It takes a while to... The problem with that show is it takes a little bit to, like, establish itself, and then it hits a peak, and then I think it coasts off that peak, and then I think it like, gets done coasting and reaches another level, and then it got canceled. So, like, there's definite, like, peaks and valleys within that. So not every episode is gold, but when it's gold, oh my fucking god. Like, I fucking...
That was my feeling.
And, like, even as much as I love Harvey Birdman, I watched it in reverse order, as I told you for this. Yeah. And, like, I definitely think, like, late season 2, through season 3 is, like, where it hits its stride. Yes.
Yeah, 2 and 3.
There's the through construction of 4, and there's a lot of great things with 4. But going back and watching season 1 after having seasons 2 and 3, I was just like... It's still a good show, but, like, it needed time, and, like, having the weird things, like Peter Potamus having hands, and, like, just, like, alright, cool.
Well, and dealing with stuff like that through line of, in 2 and 3, I think Harvey wins 2 cases total in the course of those 2 seasons. One of them, because Mentok just wants to fuck Shado in the face. Because it's Mentok. And you've tried the rest, now try the best. Stick with the kid, baby. Accept no substitutions. That's, I think, my favorite Mentok moment, is the one of him just destroying Shado and, like, slowly advancing on him and, like, pushing him into the ground. Like, that's fucking amazing. But, like, it's a joke, like a recurring joke that he's like, oh my god, like, I won the case. Like, that's incredible. I won the case. But in season 1... he consistently is winning the cases. He wins almost all the cases. And they were trying to make it much more of, like, a faithful, like, we have a superhero who is now a lawyer, so we're kind of still, like, having him win everything because he's a superhero. Other than, of course, the Denomut saga. But then watching how they changed that and how that mutated, and they really figured out their stride with 2 and 3. And I definitely agree with you. Like, 2 and 3 is, like, where that show, like, matures perfectly. It's like that point where, like, the wine loses all of its tannins, and it's nothing but, like, sweet berry goodness before it turns into, like, vinegary disgrace.
I mean, it really depends on what you're looking for in a wine. But yes.
Sweet berry goodness and vinegary disgrace, Etienne.
And to go back to the Shado Mintalk thing, Peter Potamus is actually the one that's the lawyer for that case.
Yes, I know. But Birdman does technically win because he's the defendant. Along with Top Cat and the other cats.
Oh, God.
Like, going to my job pays for things like rent and food and craps, tables. Love that shit.
You're running an illegal gambling establishment out of
my apartment. What? Lucky to place in the 5th? Well, I have no idea what you're talking about. Drop it, dirtbag! No! Like, oh, man. Well, and that one just has the whole, like, weird mind swap date thing. And I love that it's the same shitty 3D movie on the drive-in screen as the one that, like, that Phil and Bird Girl go to in the earlier episode. Which, again, like, Phil's just the most objectionable character. There's, like, a list of just, like, truly objectionable beings on that show. And I think that we can all agree that topping that list are probably Phil and Peanut. And obviously the most lovable character is Ernie Devlin.
All right there, Patrick.
Oh, dirty Connie. My hot meat sandwich blend. I kid, of course. Devlin is awful. Like, rewatching the Devlin episodes again, I'm like, oh my god.
Is there a chance you'll die?
Scungy River 2. You bitch. It's not even a motorcycle. It's a fucking rocket.
His chute deployed.
You chute deployed early and you crash on the rocks and drops the sprinkler. But it's interesting also looking at that show because of the fact that it came on at the same time as C-Lab 2021. And C-Lab 2021 is, of course, the first show helmed by Adam Reed. And I've gone on my rants about Adam Reed on this podcast before. And my love for Adam Reed, my love for C-Lab 2021, even though it's a dumpster fire of a show. It's just a casserole of nonsense and confusion. But I still truly love it because you can see the seeds of his later work in it. If you compare C-Lab to Frisky Dingo, the big difference is that I think Adam Reed adapted a big part of the style of that same humor, that like really tight, self-referential humor that they used on Harvey Birdman. You see it in the later seasons of C-Lab a lot more. There's the tight, referential humor. It's mostly episode to episode, but you still get some of the string along. But then you get to Frisky Dingo, and it's 100% those inter-episode dialogue and visual gags. That's like the entirety of what it is. And if you look at all of his shows after that, they all follow that pattern. It's another area in which I think Harvey Birdman changed fucking animated comedy. Damn it. I'll argue this. I'll argue this forever. He made all the shows that I love what they are. Ah!
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up too, and we vary greatly on this. I absolutely love Harvey Birdman. I don't like those other shows. I don't
like
know.
Aqua Teen?
I mean, I like Aqua Teen. We did an entire... I will kill you. The shows you were referencing, fucker.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Like, I'm not a C-Lab fan. I'm not a Frisky Dingo fan. I don't like...
God will know his own.
Archer.
The Extacles.
I haven't seen the Extacles.
Some of the people from the writing team were on Chosen.
Don't know Chosen.
And it was the same animation company that did Frisky Dingo, the Extacles, and Archer.
Chosen
was an FX show. Happened in the first dip in Archer, when there was like the gap in between seasons because Adam Reed got bored, like before they did Archer Vice.
For sure.
And it was about an aggressively gay gangster rapper named Chosen.
For sure.
I actually think you would actually quite dig on Chosen. It's ridiculous.
For sure.
It's a very different style. But I think a bunch of the writing people are the same across those two shows. Though it isn't technically an Adam Reed thing.
But yeah, I don't have a problem with the art style at all. It's just interesting that something that you think is so clearly based on the comedy style of Harvey Birdman that I would have such an aversion to. And it may be just the characters. Not finding my specific niche within the characters, because there's a rich cast of characters that I love in Harvey Birdman, even though they are deplorable. I mean, Peter Potamus will forever be one of my many muses.
Even if he is
I hope to have his motivational posters and
that thing.
His
seeing that thing.
His barbecuing apron that says "Hippos do it underwater." You know, that's definitely a must.
It's a classic.
His picture has been my Facebook profile picture for I don't even know how
long. I know. There was years where you didn't have your real name. You were Happy Hippocrit, and that's hippo spelled Hippo, the way God intended. But no, it is interesting that you have this like rich cast of characters in there that you drew from and like found that common ground with. And I think it makes sense because the other show is a very different. It's the same style, but it's a totally different color palette. If that makes sense. Where if Harvey Birdman is like bright colors, I think that Frisky Dingo is like a red scale, and Archer is like a grayscale in terms of like what they're showing.
Okay.
Like you have so much, it's so vivid. Like Harvey Birdman is so vivid and so constantly like it's these explosions of color, both visually and metaphorically in the show. That I think could be part of it. Because again, like, I totally get, like, not locking into any of the characters from Frisky Dingo. Because that's another show where, like, almost everybody is deplorable. And, like, my favorite characters on Frisky Dingo are not any of the main characters. They are Old Spice and Taquil and Mr. Ford. Like, they are the three characters that, like, I root for on Frisky Dingo. And it's nobody in the main cast. Because I think that part of what Adam Reed has always done is made stories about people that you really dislike. And what Frisky Dingo, or I'm sorry, what Harvey Birdman lets you do is you kind of like and enjoy these terrible characters because it's such a cartoon. Like, it is so much of that, like, you know, someone pulling out a giant hammer and bopping somebody else on the head is far more of something that will happen in that and will play out in, like, a semi-normal way in that universe, as opposed to even C-Lab. Like, if somebody got bonked on the head like that in C-Lab, they would die. And that would be the joke, that the person thought that it wasn't going to kill them. But it did kill them. Whereas on Harvey Birdman, the joke would be that these characters are acting so serious, but it is just a fucking cartoon.
It might also be the referential stuff with having other stuff from other universes to draw from, whereas something being referential but self-referential within things that they've created. And bringing in the whole rich panoply that is that Hanna-Barbera.
30 fucking years of cartoons.
Yeah, and again, I think we've talked about this either on the podcast or on a gaming something, but the possibility of, you know, with theoretical infinite universes, of there being the universe somewhere where Hanna-Barbera is at the level that Disney is, and there's a Hanna-Barbera world, and all these other things that have just made so much more current penetration into pop culture. Because, Hanna-Barbera definitely had its time in the sun, but I don't think it's had the lasting effect that Disney has.
No. I think that it very strongly affected a particular generation, or, like, two generations, like that 70s, like, late 60s even, like, late 60s through the end of the 80s. It was a big part of, like, that Saturday morning cartoon and, like, all of that kind of culture. And it does make me sad that they went down the way that they did. They crashed in the early 90s, essentially. And their last fucking show was my favorite thing they ever did. And that breaks my heart every single time.
Pirates of Darkwater or whatever?
Yep. Which I think I've ranted about on this podcast before. But just as a quick re-rant. Because I'm pretty sure it was like 20 episodes ago, so it's like a year old. Pirates of Darkwater is this incredible show where, like, instead of recycling the same kind of concept over and over, which is what they've been doing for about a decade, Hanna-Barbera was like, okay, we're, like, losing our market share and our audience share. What can we do? Let's pour the money into making, like, a really original, incredible art show. And that's what Pirates of Darkwater was. Really fascinating, like, thoroughly thought out fantasy world. Completely alien to our planet. Interesting characters. Well written, well performed, and absolutely gorgeous art throughout. It only got 2 seasons. Because Hanna-Barbera was no longer in vogue. The show was not particularly popular. And it's one of those shows that, like, people remember seeing, like, 2 episodes when they were a kid, have no idea what it was called, and will be like, oh man, I've been wondering what that show was for ages. I've had that conversation with literally 3 different friends, where they're like, hey, so I saw this show in the 90s, and there was an episode where, like, the guy put on, like, a dragon suit, and it turned him into, like, a dragon, and there was this big bone boat, and I'm like, it's the Pirates of Darkwater. That episode is called The Dagron Master. Like, that's... And, like, showed it to a few people, and they've been like, oh my god, I thought I imagined this. So, like, that is my favorite thing Hanna-Barbera ever did. And I'm sad that that wasn't on Harvey Birdman, because that would have been great. I would have been fine with them torching that part of my childhood. But it is interesting to look at that and that different level of penetration on it. And I love that that style has now not been completely lost to time because of things like Harvey Birdman. Like, I don't know. I really like that.
It may have been a timing thing. It may have been a rights thing. It may have been a lack of overall popularity. Because, again, early on, you have characters that are far more recognizable for what the source material is.
Yeah.
With the early cases. So, I can see not having that universe in there, even beyond it being a rights thing.
Yeah.
And I do agree that it's somewhat unfortunate from the little bit that I've seen. And again, like, when you have a show that reopens so much of the can of worms of what Hanna-Barbera is and what, you know, the interconnectedness of this universe. And
far more powerful, deep, and frightening. Sorry.
Okay, Patrick. But to not fully, like, re-expose and reopen. Because, again, like I mentioned, like, yes, it's completely fucking different, but I did go back and I watched fucking Peter Potamus simply because I love Peter Potamus and Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law. So to not have that, like, full expansion for people to go back and rewatch and revisit and maybe see something that they missed or didn't know existed is unfortunate, at least in that instance.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. And I am glad that certain Hanna-Barbera properties really have stuck around, like Scooby-Doo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ain't nobody forgetting Scooby-Doo anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to be forgetting Mickey Mouse. I mean, it's going to take way longer to forget Mickey Mouse because they still have all the money.
Right.
Like, we still have all your
until
money.
Fucking, like, all the other properties that they've bought eclipse their actual, like, own original properties, which is possible.
Well, it's starting to go that way.
You look at, like, you know, the Star Wars and the Marvel section of Disneyland expanding, and I don't think Mickey's ever going to fully go away, considering it's the iconic thing. It's the fucking logo. You're not going to fucking lose that.
No, like, they'll keep using it as a tie together, which I thought they've actually done quite tastefully for about the last 10 years. They've managed to seed Mickey just enough into things. And Kingdom Hearts gave them a perfect vehicle in order to connect the entire universe and make Mickey an active part of it continually. And I thought that beyond the fact that Kingdom Hearts was a fantastic game, that was a brilliant marketing move. Brilliant. I've got to doff my cap. Creative and marketing. One of the few times that actually a good creative decision was also a good marketing decision, and a good marketing decision was also a good creative decision.
Non sequitur, I realize we've gotten way off track talking about the animation juggernauts of the last couple decades.
Yeah.
But something that was interesting, I presume you still haven't seen Guardians 2 yet.
No, I have not yet.
Well, I don't think this is really a spoiler, but a comment that a friend made to me was he was frustrated with how much they shoved Baby Groot down our throats. And my first comment to him, even before I saw the movie, was it's owned by Disney. They're doing that to sell toys. Yeah. Because they know Groot will sell. They know children are going to love that. And lo and behold,
was one of the big things from the first movie.
Even before I saw the fucking film, I saw an ad for a Groot toy on TV, and I was just like, oh my fucking god.
Yep.
Like, I like Groot too, but, like, still, like, having that entrenched level of marketing and product placement and all these other things does disgust me, like, deep down.
Yeah, it's deeply frustrating. And, again, I get it. But, like, I feel bad for the artists who are stuck within that system. So you have, like, these really, really creative people who are still turning out fucking fantastic work, but are going to have those requirements.
That stole our dreams. Sorry.
Accurate. But, like, you have these incredibly creative people who, frankly, are doing a great job considering, but who are having to modify what they would have been creating otherwise in order to sell more things. And that hurts me. Like, that just, anytime that happens, where I'm like, yep, and that is their paid spot for Miller 64. Now, obviously, that wasn't a Disney reference that I was talking about, but, like, one of my favorite shows, there's, like, 2 seasons where they obviously were just getting handed money by Miller, and one of the characters, like, conspicuously, like, has shots where he, like, turns into profile and drinks a Miller 64 with the label facing the camera. And up until that point, you see, like, corners of labels, edges of labels, never a full label on a beer bottle, never a recognizable label on a beer bottle. From that point on, there's, like, jokes where he's like, come on, it's only 64 calories, you don't gotta worry about it. Profile shot, smiling after I drink this can of Tab. Like, which is why I love the Tab reference, even though that's season 1 of Harvey Birdman. If we're gonna bring it all the way back, they were mocking it so brilliantly in that show in the moments where it comes up. And it does make me sad, but it is also a part of Disney staying on top as the kind of behemoth that it is. And I hate it, but if it also means that Disney continues to turn out the better quality of work that they've been doing now, instead of that shit they were doing for like 15 years, that was all bad, I can understand it. I'm not happy about it, but I can live with it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the amount of necessary evil it is.
Yeah.
Like, I wish it was another way, but you need to be able to make money to be able to produce a product to be able to make money.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, especially when you have, you know, a show that you love, specifically like an animated show.
Yeah.
That gets canceled because it's not selling enough merchandise outside of the show.
Oh, the fucking the Young Justice thing.
Or you have shows where characters are added specifically to sell a toy, to make more profit on the side, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only reason that, you know, Wesley Crusher's in TNG is to, you know, sell toys.
Well, no, the idea was, I mean, there's actually,
being
all right.
jackass.
Well, because I bought a Wesley Crusher action figure. I just had Data kick his ass every day because I had a Data action figure.
Stop.
Just with the Wesley action figure. The Wesley action figure was actually kind of pathetic, which was funny, and you could like hurl it. He got hurled a lot. There were a lot of death matches between my action figures, and Wesley was like the lowest ranked of the gladiators. Regardless, but I totally feel you on that. I'm sorry, were you going to say?
Well, I was going to jump back to something that I probably would have been an easier segue earlier on, but we're here now. The amount of reverence and irreverence and taking itself seriously and not taking itself seriously that they did parodying and satirizing things. Like the guitar control fucking episode.
Oh my god.
It's obviously like, yes, this is an open gun control issue. We are making it absurdist by replacing it with guitars. Obviously mocking the NRA with the guitar
lobby doing its thing.
Just
but mocking both sides of the debate.
Yes,
perfectly.
And I thought they did that excellently. And it's something that they did throughout, but that episode is just it's perfect.
It's like a shining example of that because it's and I love that they managed to make the show never partisan. When it does go into actual social issues, it's not partisan. It's pointing out the absurdity of both sides and being like, you're all cartoons. Which is one of the things that I love about it at the end of the day is that it has that, like, this is a cartoon world, so we can deal in a silly way with these things that are not
and we can
silly.
even go to the full level of meta-mocking that we're not actually dealing with things, with going to the higher power of courts that be, and going to the Justices League.
Oh God, the Justices League
to deal with the
gay marriage.
Yeah,
I love that one. I absolutely love that one. Just ends with the like, yeah, it's a state issue. It's not constitutional. And like they just get like. I enjoy also because they have that reference to the real world, but there's also like incredibly dense other references to media. And I want to go through and actually just make a note of every one of those references that I don't get. Because rewatching this time, I realized, especially in seasons 1 and 2, but even into the beginning of 3, there's all these throwaway lines that Harvey has where he incorrectly references things. So, the first Bannon custody one, when Dr. Quest comes in, he is talking about the, like, and, you know, maybe I should have made more time for the boys, but I think I'm a good father. And it cuts back and he goes, the cat's in the cradle and the silver ball. And it's just such a perfect transposition of, no, Harvey, you missed the fucking bus. Like, that's not the same reference. You just mix the two different classic rock songs, the one that applies and the one that totally doesn't. And he has these in every single episode up through the end of season 2. So things like if you ever heard of Inimitatable Acts, great movie, Esther House. Like that, I don't know what that means. I don't get what that reference means. I don't know what Esther House is. So I would love to go through, because there's such dense referencing. It's like MF Doom's rap, where it's just like, I want to go through and like write a note of like, okay, let me write down the like 30 references I didn't get here and look them up, because I'm intrigued. Like, these motherfuckers, like, it's like Venture Brother levels of...
Well, and, like, the weird, like, referential stuff that they do, and, like, even beyond, like, having characters, like, having the Turner Classic episode.
Oh, my God!
At the very end,
Busy Day for Birdman!
Has the double indemnity reference.
Yes!
And then later on, they have the whole thing with fucking...
literally double indemnity, yeah.
And I'm just like, what? Like, that's not even a character. That's a random reference.
It is a concept. It is a concept that they reused and kept using as that repetitive building joke. Like, and again, I think that my favorite visual gag in the entire thing is either the lobsters or Frida Kahlo. Because Frida Kahlo comes back all the way to season 4. Like, the end of season 4. She's in the final one. They put her in the final one. And I just love... I love just the lobster. Just the ridiculousness of, in all the episodes where there's the lobster just flying by in the background. Anytime there's a gust of wind, there's a lobster. Anytime a whole bunch of objects fly, there's a lobster. Like, never referenced, never actually, like, dealt with, but it was just this little seed that they put through the entire thing. And actually, that's not fair. I left out one of my favorites, which is Reducto sprinting through and knocking things over. Mm-hmm. That's actually probably my favorite visual gag. Like... But just because the way they build that, where, like, the first episode it happens, and then it happens again, and then it happens a third time, and then when it happens in later episodes, they just don't even bring it up. It triggers. Suddenly Reducto runs through and he knocks everything over. Like, choice.
Reducto.
Yeah. I enjoyed the depth that they built into his character and all the weirdness. The one... with him allying with Inch High. Okay, I'm sorry. This is actually something we got to deal with. Inch High Private Eye.
Yeah.
I thought that, as another running visual thing in the background, was incredible. I watched a supercut of every single Inch High background appearance, like 2-3 weeks ago, like right after we decided to do this show. And... I was like, this is incredible. Like, he's in almost every episode. It was right after you sent me the
supercut of all the ha-has.
Yeah, all of the...
Even the one that's just on his fucking door.
Yeah, the ha-ha. And that, just the okay, male and female ends. One more. Ha-ha. You've got this. Unlocking now. Like, where he's trying to hit the fucking keyhole with the key. Like... And they never show him do it. It just works at a certain point, which I love. Sorry, I lost track of what I was going to say.
Talking about the Inch High Private Eye supercut being in almost every episode.
Yeah, like, that's another thing where they just put in that work to have him be these little details in the background affecting the world, even if it's something tiny. But those little elements build up. So, like, the olive reference as well. Like, the one episode where, like, his first one where he gets, like, stuck on the olive at a certain point. Like, stuck on the, like, olive skewer for the martini glass. Like, him and olives come up repeatedly. The fight with Reducto. Coming back around in the episode where they're going after Adamant. Like, there's a bunch of references to the olives again. Which, I love the Adamant episode. If for no reason other than... Reducto chugging JB's absinthe alone in a room, painting like the walls with his feces. Yeah. Bottles. Like, so good. Such brilliant work. And I didn't realize, actually, that Reducto was Stephen Colbert until this last watch through. Because I started looking up, like, okay, who did some of these voices on some of the ones I didn't know. And primarily, I wanted to find out who played live-action Birdman in the live-action Birdman shots. Sure. Because I was like, he's not credited. Like, they don't credit him fucking anywhere. So I went and I looked, and he was like a random dude from the production staff who, like...
I figured it was one of the show's creators just having fun and being I want to do this. Fuck it. Like, we're doing this as an episode because I want to dress up as Birdman.
Well, yeah. Fuck it. Well, but I also looking at the bottom half of his face, he looked like this other actor who plays... a wide variety of roles on TV and has for the last, 20 years. So, I saw the bottom half of the face and I was like, that would be crazy if they got this actor for it. And, I don't know the guy's name offhand, but, he's one of those actors that's been in every major TV show for 20 years. He's done a guest role. My favorite role of his is, Brennan, who's a long-term villain on Burn Notice. And he's a patient that loses the ability to control saying what comes into his mind on House. So it's just an episode of that actor, being terrible to his wife and kid. And being
excellent. Excellent.
Please help me. I don't want to say these things. But they're just coming out of my mouth. And then, his wife being like, it's okay, dear. And he's like, no, it's not fucking okay. I'm going to ruin my career. Don't fucking lie to me. And her being like, wow, I'm just trying to help. And he's like, yeah, but it doesn't fucking help. And he's like, please stop this. I want to stop saying these things. And it's a lot of fun. But I thought it was that actor, so that's why I went down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I didn't realize that he was the same actor. Or that Shadow is Gary Cole. Mm-hmm. What the fuck? Okay, that totally makes sense. And listening through, there's a lot of those repeated voice actors. And I enjoy that element of the show.
Well, that's something that you don't tend to notice on first... with any show, when you watch it on first blush, you don't necessarily pick up, hey, this is this person, or, the background details of the episode. But with repeated watchings or viewings of anything, you pick up those little notes.
Yeah.
And, even if they're not super hidden, you have those lightning bolt moments. And especially on voice-acted shows, you have people that are playing, 2 to 3 characters, and they're doing different voices. Again, when we did home movies, the range that John Benjamin had on that show compared to what he does for everything else.
Yeah.
It's surprising that some of the roles that he did on that were him.
Yeah.
And you don't pick it up until 2 or 3 times through.
Because you're used to hearing H. John Benjamin sound like H. John Benjamin. There's that one particular voice, but he's a real voice actor.
And I would say the same thing is true of Stephen Colbert and various other voice actors in this. I went through the credits and stuff to see some of the other guest spots. I know Mark Hamill was Ricochet Rabbit.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily get the full because all the main characters play 3 or 4 different people.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing to have that interconnected web of holy crap, that's an incredible talent.
Yeah, and all of those people. And I think that the early Adult Swim shows as a whole all had a truly amazing set of people doing the voice talent for them. You look at the work of a bunch of those people, and my favorite example of that is Dana Snyder. Mm-hmm. So Dana Snyder is obviously best known for Master Shake and that particular voice. And the other thing where you recognize his voice and what he does is The Alchemist in Venture Brothers. Because literally he went in and tried 4 different voices, and Jackson Public and Doc Hammer, there's an interview about it where they felt really bad, and they called in Dana Snyder because they literally wanted him to do it in Shake's voice. And he's a real voice actor, so he gave them 4 different thought out voices, and they were like, yeah, could you do it as Master Shake? Yeah, okay, do it as Master Shake. And that's what they wanted. But looking at how all of those guys were able to widely change what it was that they did with their voices. The guy who did Carl's voice, and half the voices on fucking Squidbillies, was one guy. It's one fucking dude. And I was just I had no idea. I had no idea any of those voices were the same person. And I watched a panel that had all of the Aqua Teen guys and, had an example of that. And I haven't actually watched any old school panels of, the Harvey Birdman guys, because I don't know if there were any. Because, I don't know that they were getting invited to cons in 2004 when the show, ended. 2005. Early 2005. Because it was 4 seasons over 5 years. Yeah. Whatever. But, yeah, no, I think that part of the reason that those shows did so well was both because they had really strong work on the writing end, some of them stronger than others. I definitely think that the writing was stronger on, say, Harvey Birdman than it was on C-Lab. I definitely think that the writing was stronger on, at least at the beginning, was stronger on the Brack Show than it was on Aqua Teen. I still like Aqua Teen better than I like the Brack Show. I love the Brack Show. I have a lot of personal love for the Brack Show. But
I thought you were going to say I have a lot of personal problems, a lot of personal issues.
I mean, I do with everything. But the Brack
Show.
Show.
I like the Brack Show is because I have deep-seated problems
with literally everything, and that show doesn't work, and it doesn't. But that show's also like very much like a self-referential show for film buffs. In a way, like I had a couple of cinephile homies in high school who were like all about the Brack Show specifically because of those elements. And so like you compare like season 1 of the Brack Show to season 1 of Aqua Teen, like the writing on the Brack Show is tighter, it's better thought out, whatever. But there's also something fucking magical in Aqua Teen in the like right mix of voice actors and everything. And looking at how those shows all kind of equalized in terms of the voice talent and the writing over the course of those first 4 years where it was just those properties. It was those projects that were going on at William Street. And all of these people were constantly working together, constantly cross-pollinating. It's just a really cool thing. And I wish that I was old enough to have had the chance of like doing voiceover at that time, like with that group of people. 'Cause like, oh my God, that must have been an interesting and like creative environment. I would have loved to work with those people then. Now, nah. Burn them.
Fuck them.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're old
what
now.
have they done for me lately?
Nothing. They did Stroker and Hoop, and that's terrible. Aqua Teen's
clearly
dead.
you just needed to travel forward back in time like the Jetsons and the distant future
to
of
teach them about
2002.
computers. Yeah, in 2004. Like, I just love that, where he just looks at the thing and he's like, okay. To prepare our food, we just hit a couple of buttons and bang, it's done. Pulls lunch out of the microwave and walks away. Called sprockets.
I go to work and I press a button all day. Great. Good job.
No, I loved the play that they did with that. Again, knowing exactly when to play up the cartoon elements of the world and knowing when to introduce the realistic elements of, like, it's the year 2003. You did not travel forward in time.
Right.
But theoretically you did, but you didn't. I just love that they creates that quandary that they do not, they treat it as that full, like, they play both sides.
I wonder what effect them coming back in time is going to have. The apple turns into a banana.
Yeah, the water slowly rising outside the window, like, that's another visual gag, the Peanut swimming past with the snorkel gag. I hate Peanut. I love Peanut and I hate Peanut, we discussed at the beginning.
I said that, like, he was not one of my favorites, and if I had to, like, make a tier list, I mean, he'd probably be a beer tier list, yes.
A beer tier list?
He'd probably be, like, B on my tier list.
Tomato soup.
Which, all things considered, is not bad.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would be an F except for Magilla Gorilla, and that's goddamn well where he belongs.
I guess I deserved that punishment. The slap, like, I sure appreciate it. They drive back with the station wagon to hit him.
I mean, I would.
Hey, his whereabouts are the planet Earth, man. I mean, we are all in his whereabouts. Yeah, woo, right on. You have no idea where he is, do you? No. Yeah, woo, right on. Look at that. That's something that I wish I had just on, like a sound box, like a sound box that I could carry around with me. Like, anytime anybody, like, said something truly stupid.
You should make it your notification thing on your phone.
Oh,
so whenever
my
somebody
God.
like texts you or something.
Yeah, woo, right on. Like, I like that a lot. Like, the misanthrope in me just, like, blossoms with joy at that concept. Like, I like that.
Especially if you get, like, bad news, too. By text. Like,
yeah.
Just went into the hospital today, Patrick. Not doing so well. Woo! Yeah, all right, right on.
Right on. Just change everything on my phone to various different sound clips from Harvey Birdman. I actually like that quite a bit. I might actually decide to learn how to use my phone's functions to, like, make custom ringtones, because I know you can do that, but, like...
You've just still been feeding in the punch cards in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have a punch card. I mean, I have a word processor. It processes my words. I don't know why I need any of this newfangled technology.
Does your phone still run on tubes?
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 No. This is simple. This is a simple. Wow, I can't remember the name of the thing from before tubes. I keep thinking of catheter, and it's not the right word.
You talking about sprockets?
Yes.
Okay.
Technological wonders known as sprockets. But in any event, I think that we're probably pulling to a close here. But I would definitely recommend anybody out there, Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, amazing show. You can watch it on adultswim.com. You can watch it on Hulu. If you got a Hulu account, you can watch all of it. Yeah, I fucking hate Hulu too. But my point is, it's the legal way to watch it, like, which I obviously did.
Because you have a Hulu account.
Yep.
Because I still have roommates who have all the accounts.
No, I don't actually.
No, I'm aware. I was making light of that.
Which is too bad.
Get it? T and A.
One last time. T and A. Just get it. Like, Potamus's frustration in that scene is so fucking good. Good old legal. But yeah, check out Harvey Birdman. Truly amazing. I think it was a pivotal moment in comedy. Etienne has more doubts on that count than I have.
You know, it's one of those things that, like, whenever somebody only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Did I say anything absolute?
Yes. You pointed to it being the start of a reform in the modern comedy era.
Yeah, Adult Swim.
Yeah, so I don't know if that I can quite get behind.
Okay.
Anyways, we've far drawn out this intro. It's terrible.
You mean outro?
Fuck.
See you nut meats in hell.